Amen. You know, I want to start putting stuff on here, on the video, but I'm not really sure what I want to put on. No. Amen, amen, amen. Amen, amen, amen. This may take a while to get it going here. I want to go back, say, maybe 35 years ago. And this when I was living at a different house down the road. I laying in the bed and I was just meditating on spiritual things, I guess you would say. And amen. The thing's going light and dark again. I don't know why it does it, but it does. I don't know anything about these things. I know how to turn them on and turn them off and not much else. But anyway, I was laying on the bed. Like I say, just kind of meditating on the things of God, spiritual things, I guess you'd say. And all of a sudden, I just started raising up, away from my body. I could see my body laying on the bed, but I'm going up, and I go all the way up to the ceiling. Once I get up to the ceiling, I start moving across the room. And on the other side of the room, we had a closet there for the bedroom. And then on the other side of the wall was the living room. And the door, when you walk in, they had a coat closet there, and that extended out into the bedroom. So they had the coat closet here and the bedroom closet here. In between the two closets was a window. And my spirit left my body, went up to the ceiling, went across the room, all the way to that window, and then it stopped. And long ago, a long time ago, but I still remember it pretty well, and it just stayed there at the window, and I could see my body laying over on the bed. And God spoke to me some things then, and I can't remember exactly what it was. He said that the time was coming when the flesh would no longer be a barrier to the spirit or something like that. He said the spirit would go out from the bounds of the flesh and become joined to God's spirit, and we would be one. And we would actually be living in the spirit. I mean, the Bible speaks of this. Paul spoke of it, you know. His flesh had been put to death. He was no longer a carnal person in any way. He was living by the Spirit. He said, I serve God with my spirit. And he said he once served God in the flesh, but no longer did he serve God in the flesh. And he tells how when he served God in the flesh, that he couldn't actually serve God in the correct way, because serving God in the flesh, your flesh is always a hindrance to you. You're always doing those things you wouldn't do and not doing the things you would do. You're delighting in the law of God in your inner man, but your outer man is still alive and still desiring to do those things that the flesh desires to do, you know? And so we need to become spiritual. I mean, we've needed this all along, but now, I started thinking about this back in the time when the COVID, all the COVID stuff was going on. I started thinking about that out of body experience, I'll call it, that I had back then. And they were talking about them vaccines, how they mess up your DNA, they mess with the DNA. And but it's even worse than that, because all the tech, all this artificial intelligence, and all this high tech stuff, and all this messing with the genetics, and something's happening in this world. Something that man is playing God. I'll put it that way. Man is playing God. Man thinks he is God. Uh, it's I wish I could really get into it, but I can't. I can't. Not right now. But I hope to sometime in the future. That amen. Amen, amen. I'm just saying we got to get into that spiritual realm, that higher realm. We got to walk in the spirit. We can't be messing around in the flesh anymore. We just can't. We can't. And I can't get people to see that. I can't. I just can't get people to see it. And it's kind of hard when everybody around you is so carnal, And yet there's a spiritual place that we all need to be in, And if we're going to make it through these last days, we need to get busy and get into that spiritual realm. And Paul said that the carnal man cannot please God because it cannot be subject to God's law. He says God's law is holy. God's law is good. God's law is teaches us, and it instructs us. It instructs us in holiness, and instructs us on how to live, how to have true life. God, our Maker, He knows what we need, and He gives us instructions on how to live. And we need to start living the way He tells us to live. And we need to pray for understanding, because we're not going to understand His instructions through our own carnal mind. We need the Spirit. We need the Spirit to understand spiritual things. We need to be in a spiritual place. We need to have spiritual understanding. And I want to start trying to get into all this stuff. It might take a while, but because I'm like everybody else, and I'm all tied down with carnal things, with this world, trying to make a living, trying to get by, trying to make what I have get by to what I get a little more. But anyway, I just leave it there for now. Amen.